Hello and welcome to Lynchburg Live. I'm your host, Linda Smith. The ability to write poetry comes not only from a special talent that the poet possesses, it comes from the heart. My guest tonight is a personal friend and local poet, Nakesha Moore. Nakesha pours out her heart and her soul in her original poetry, while at the same time addressing real issues that affect all of us. Nakesha, welcome to Lynchburg Live.
Thank you.
I'm so glad to have you. As we get started, would you tell our audience just a little bit about yourself? Were you born in the Lynchburg area?
I was born in Gretna, but I have lived in Lynchburg for about 12 years now. I have 2 children that I devote most of my time to, and between my children and my writing, those are my passions.
So you really are a Lynchburger.
I am now, I can say that.
All right, how long have you been writing and how did you get started?
I've been writing since I was 6 years old. It started out with just a love of books and a love of words and a love of singing. So I used to write songs because I wanted to be like Mariah Carey. And I think my mom had finally had enough of it one day and encouraged me to write poetry instead of songs so that I didn't have to sing them. I could just say the words instead. And it just grew from there.
So did you start writing poetry as a child?
Yes, but it wasn't very deep or anything because I was 6 and 7.
I was going to ask you, what kind of poetry did you write as a child?
The only one I remember is one that was about my feelings, and I spelled feelings F-I-L-L-I-N-G-S. And that stuck in my mind.
That's cool. All right, now you're primarily a poet, but your biography says that you're also a writer. What else do you write besides poems?
Just recently I started writing something called flash fiction. It's just fiction, but it's about 100 words or less, and I'm fascinated by telling a story with so few words because it's really challenging, but when you do it right, it's a nice payoff. And I always like to write in school, anything, book reports, papers. I just love manipulating words, so yeah. I think I can write anything.
And you do a wonderful job. You know, I'm really impressed with your talent. But now your bio also includes that you're a host and an actress. Tell us about that.
Well, it's been a while since I hosted, but I've hosted different events in Lynchburg, open mics, artist showcases. A few years ago, I fell back from that because the time and energy I was devoting to other artists, I needed to devote that to myself, to try to work on my performance and stage presence. Acting, that's in my bio and on my card, to remind myself that that's a talent that I have because I tend to forget, and I've neglected that for so many years. It's been about 12 years since the last time I was in an actual production, but I like to keep it present so that I know that I can go back to it, and I'm thinking about it very soon. In Lynchburg, there's a production of The Death of a Salesman coming up,
right.
And I'm strongly considering auditioning for that.
That would be great.
I think so.
That would be really great. Now, how long have you just specifically been focused on writing poetry?
Since I was about 18, and I was, a teenager going through teenager things, and the best way for me to process that at the time was poetry. And the more things that happened in my life, the more I returned to the poetry, and it's really my comfort zone. So,
you know, as a contemporary poet, Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write? I mean, you just answered that a little bit, but I mean, is there anything specific?
Well, just life, but in general, specifically, normal teenager things back then, just the, end of the world romances and things that weren't that serious in hindsight. And then more of as an adult, lost my firstborn child. He died early. And I actually have to credit poetry with saving my life and getting me through the grieving process. And that is when I really realized that my words could affect other people as much as they did me by sharing those poems dealing with the grief and having other people read them and their responses. And that's when I really decided to focus in and realize that I had something here and I needed to use my voice.
Right. And I know that Darryl Laurent, I'm going to ask you another question about him, but he had said that you use your poetry as therapy. And so that's what you're talking about. And I do understand from writing poetry myself that it can be very cathartic if you can't really say it to another person. If you can write it down, it's the biggest help in the world.
It is, and sometimes you're going through things and you don't even realize what's on your mind until you write it down and read it. It's like, oh, okay, that's what it is, and then you can let it go and move forward from it.
It's almost like actually confronting it.
It is.
And getting it out. So I understand, how that works for you. All right, now you're called a spoken word artist. What is that?
A spoken word artist is someone who performs their poetry. A lot of people put it in the same category. It's not really the same thing. It's one thing to be able to write poetry and recite it or read it. It's a completely different process to be able to show the emotion through an actual performance. And for years, I was a poet, and I didn't know the difference until I actually learned how to perform it and express the words through just my voice.
This article that Daryl Arant wrote and included you in it, I thought he focused on you really well. He said that I think he had been to a poetry reading where you and other poets were reading their work. And he had said, let me see what he said. He said your poetry was fast, punchy, and raw. And, I think that's such a compliment. He was very complimentary to you.
He was.
And
I took it as a compliment.
that has to make you feel really, really good.
It does. It's one of the best feelings in the world after you perform to have someone tell you were great, that
Right.
you were good. It's one of the best feelings in the world.
And then to have him write about you in the newspaper, I just think that's really great. Now, I understand that you refuse to water down any of the subjects you address in your poetry, and that makes you extremely honest, but it also kind of labels you as being controversial sometimes. So tell us about some of the subjects you address in your poetry.
Anything, pretty much anything that happens. I've talked about relationships, one of them in particular, abusive relationship with my children's father. Anything that happens, even things of an erotic nature. Sometimes I include profanity. It's just a lot of things that we're all going through and we all think. And I just want to express it because I feel that it's unfair to anybody who's reading or watching to sugarcoat it. I don't want to do that. I want to be genuine and I want to be real. And it's as much for my benefit as it is for the audience.
If you edit it or take something out because you don't want to offend somebody, that will often change the whole meaning or the whole presentation of what you're trying to say. So I think that's to your credit that you just tell it like it is. And people who read your poetry can connect with it. They can relate to it. And that again is, I think, because you just tell it like it is. So
thank you.
That's great. All right. They say, I've heard it said about you, that you possess a raw openness and can skillfully make the audience feel every emotion. Now, that's quite a talent. And is that something that you consciously do, or is it something that just comes out as you're...
I think it's both. For a while, it wasn't conscious. It was just something I did to write because it was cathartic, it was therapy. And then once I realized what an effect it had on people, because I could say things that they wouldn't, I decided to make sure that I was 100% real, raw.
That's great. Now, you have a YouTube following.
I do.
Tell me what you have on YouTube.
Right now, I just have one video, a piece called Full Disclosure. I had a few others up there, but I've decided to try to make the quality more professional. So I took all the other ones down, and I'm in the process of making new ones to put up now.
Do you know how many people are following you on YouTube?
No, I try not to focus on that because it'll drive me crazy. So.
And that's the way to do it. If you are presenting your craft and your art, then you really can't be worried about numbers.
Exactly.
You're doing this as a presentation. If people want to watch, want to listen, great. If they choose not to, numbers are not that important, right?
I agree.
Okay. Right. Now, you have had a positive and really busy summer this year. I was with you when we started out in March doing that program at the library, Lynchburg Writes. Was it Lynchburg? Lynchburg Writes. And then from there, you just took off.
It's been a lot. I've done different venues. I went to Baltimore for National Poetry Month, and I was blessed to be able to perform at Busboys and Poets. A lot of people aren't familiar with it, but if you're in that world, it's a big deal. It's a huge deal, and that was probably the highlight so far. I performed at a hair show in May. At the end of this month, I have a fashion show coming up that I'm going to be performed at, and then also a back-to-school celebration that I'll be performing at, and there are a couple of other things that I'm neglecting to mention.
What about the mammography program?
How could I forget that?
I mean,
Thank you.
I think that's such a great thing that you've donated your time to encourage women.
That's one of the biggest things I actually do. Every year, they have a celebration of the Juneteenth, which is to pretty much celebrate the Emancipation Proclamation and the freeing of the slaves and the process that happened. And we all get together, and it's a big event in Lynchburg, and they always have a mammography van there to test people and HIV test them as well, and it's all free.
And you were there, and did you do a poetry reading?
I did. I actually did the same poem.
I think that's great that you volunteered your time for that.
Thank you.
All right, you have brought some pictures with you, and Phil, if you'll put the pictures up on the screen, we'll get Nakesha to tell us what they are.
That is my souvenir from Busboys and Poets, one of the best nights of my life. I was really happy to be a part of that.
And that was in Baltimore?
That was in Baltimore for National Poetry Month.
That's wonderful.
That is one of my pictures from Facebook. Sometimes when I have writer's block and I can't write and I feel the need to express something, I will attempt to take a picture to express what's in my mind. And that was me saying, be careful. If I'm writing about you, then watch out. And I had a roll of caution tape I had been looking at on my bookcase forever. I was like, I needed to do something with it. And I'm happy with it. That's another picture from when I was in Baltimore at a restaurant that had a poetry performance at, I think it's Cazaby. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's a Spanish restaurant, so I may be pronouncing it wrong. I'm sorry. But I performed there as well for National Poetry Month. That is a clip from the newspaper promoting an event in April. It was in Brookneal. It was an author showcase. That is one of my collections of poetry. Sometimes at events I go to, since I have not buckled down and gotten my official book published yet, I do take small collections just in case someone wants to purchase them when I perform. I usually put 5 or 6 poems in it.
And this is an excellent book,
Thank
I
you.
think.
That is the hair show I did at the end of May. I was performing. I really wanted to stand, but you can't see, but my heels are about 4 inches. And I was not so sure that standing was a good idea, so I had my stool.
And this was, where was this?
That was at the Dream Center in Lynchburg. It was a fashion show.
And both of your kids, is this the fashion show both of your children were in?
They were in it as well. Yeah.
You have some really cool kids.
Thank you.
Oh, who are those two people?
This is me and one of the coolest women I know, Miss Linda. This was at Lynchburg Writes at the library. That's also at Lynchburg Writes. I was autographing one of my books. And that is my daughter Savannah and Marquise hiding in the background. That is a flyer for the Juneteenth celebration, celebration the emancipation of slavery we talked about a few minutes ago. And like I said, that's one of my favorite things to do. I've done it, I think, 6 years now, and I make sure I do it every year.
You know, as a breast cancer survivor, I really applaud anybody who encourages people to do that.
This is my favorite picture ever. It's another one from Facebook. And this is one of those times where I had the writer's block, and I really had it for about 3 months, and I couldn't say anything, and I was just ready to scream, and this popped in my head, so I did it, and I'm very happy with it.
So you're very expressive in your photography and your pictures.
I try. This is my one sheet. It's pretty much just a flyer promoting myself with the bio and just relative information, a couple of shots to promote myself.
I didn't know what a one sheet was until you told me.
Neither did I. I had to look it up.
I think this is all. All right, now in your everyday life, you've made a number of health choices, good health choices and changes in the past couple of years. Could you tell us about your weight loss program?
The first thing I had to do was quit smoking, and that was hard, but I did that. And then I went on a really strict regimen. I tried to cut out everything bad and just have good things. And I actually stuck to it for quite a while. I lost over 60 pounds. And then I got a little bit cocky and slipped up a little bit. It started with Thanksgiving and then Christmas, and then I couldn't use the holidays as an excuse anymore. But I am back on track now, working to lose it again. What I learned is that it can't be a diet, it has to be a lifestyle. It can't end, because once it ends, then I was hungry and I ate everything. So I have to be more consistent.
And so you're really dedicated to maintaining your current weight. And are you in a fitness program, or is it a self?
I do it myself
at
home, around my schedule. I do work out. Just things you can do at home. I do have a glider, a small piece of equipment that I'll get on, but basically sit-ups, arm weights, just moving. As long as I'm moving, I'm happy.
And you walk and run, too.
I do, on the nature trail.
As a matter of fact, this picture behind us you took while you were out on one of your walks, and it's a beautiful picture. Now, you're a mom of two, and I know you're very conscious of providing your kids with good diets and that kind of thing, and I think they'd almost prefer to have a tossed salad, than to have ice cream.
Almost. Ice cream might win out depending on the flavor, but they do have a love of fruits and vegetables, and they like being healthy. And that's something we do together as a family, and that makes it easier when they're on board with it too.
You know, I think that when you post on Facebook things like, you know, you ask your kids what they'd like to have for dinner or what they'd like to have for breakfast, and their answers are healthy stuff. It's not like pizza or anything like that. So that's to your credit, Nakesha, that you're bringing them up.
Thank you.
When they get adults and want to go crazy, that's their choice. But you know, this you're doing it the right way. Now, you've recently gotten a new job that's really kind of related to your interest in maintaining your health and good diet and that kind of thing. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I am. It's through Virginia State University. It's Virginia Cooperative Extension. It is a nutrition course, I guess, to generalize it. I actually took the course last year, and I learned so much, and I kept in contact with the lady who taught the class, Janelle Smith, and we've been in contact ever since. And when a new position opened up, she thought of me, and I'm really excited to get started and hope that I can impact someone the way she impacted me, and also stay on track myself. I want to be an example for other people, so I have to do the right thing myself.
You know, being able to do that, do the right thing, help other people, and be paid for it, that's such a plus.
Yes, that is.
All right. What would you say is the most positive effect that all these good things that have happened to you this summer have had on you?
I think I'm comfortable in my own skin now. I don't really doubt myself as much because, well, I still doubt myself sometimes, of course. But when I need a reminder, I just think of what I've done and what I've accomplished, and it kind of gives me that push to keep going, because I know that I'm capable of it, because I surprised myself in the past.
Now, do you have a website?
Not yet, no.
But you do have a Facebook page.
I do have a Facebook.
And if you have a Facebook page, you have two, one dedicated just for friends and then another as an artist.
I do, but they kind of have blurred. Even though I have the separate pages, I kind of forget that sometimes and just do whatever.
So what's coming up for you? I mean, you told us a little bit. Do you have any long-range plans? Have you been invited anyplace else?
Well, I'm auditioning Saturday for a tour of artists. I don't know whether it's going to go, if they're going to accept me, but that would be something long term. I'm excited to see what happens. I do want to finally buckle down and finish the book. Even though I think the book's finished. I think it's been finished.
You just need to.
I'm a perfectionist, and every time I think I'm done with it, I'll write something else. It's like, oh, that needs to go in the book, or this needs to go in the book, and that's not perfect. And I think I'm just procrastinating. That would probably be the closest long-term goal I have, to finally just get that done and let it go and see what happens.
That's great. And I'm so glad for you that you're out there and people are being able to witness your talent, because I'm one of your biggest fans. All right, now, this is a question. Why do you write, Nakesha?
I write because I am a writer.
And when you've got it in there, you just have to do it, don't you?
That's what I was born to do. I don't really have a choice.
Can you tell our audience one more time where they can get a copy of your book, or how they could buy a copy of this particular book?
Well, I usually have them with me at any event I perform at, but you can also contact me on Facebook. It's Nakesha Renee Moore, or you can email me at Nakesha.Moore@Yahoo, and I'd be happy to get you a copy.
And we've got a little more than 5 minutes before this show is over, and I really want you to perform a poem for us that's my favorite of all the ones that I've read of yours that we can put on here. Okay. All right. You want to tell them a little bit about what it is?
I wrote this a while back with my children in mind. Just, you turn on the TV and you watch the news, and it is so depressing to be a parent raising a child in this world with everything that's going on. And the poem was birthed from that. Okay. It's called For the Sake of My Children. My desire has always been to inspire, a casualty of friendly fire in a not-so-friendly environment. See, Shorty lives right up the street. Her family secrets buried so deep so she dares not speak. Distressed, she suppresses every memory until she alters her reality, and I remember me so I can relate. Should have been having tea parties and playing with Barbies, overlooked and forgotten, forsaken and downtrodden. So she exists in her own space and hides behind the artificial smile on her face, daydreaming of a better day, somehow still naive enough to believe in fate. But the thing about dreaming is that eventually you must wake. And so I did, as did she, unaware that all attention isn't good attention. So generationally speaking, the cycle kept on going, and the hole in her heart kept on growing. And we all turned a blind eye, enabling and disabling without even knowing. Sisters and brothers, I thought we were supposed to love one another. Instead, we laugh at each other's struggles, even though they're our own struggles echoed. Before we can be a collective we must all be able to see what it really means to be free, to forgive without forgetting the past, because we are fading fast, and it's up to us who gets that last laugh. And I'm just trying to put my 2 cents in, trying to save the world for the sake of my children and for the sake of yours. Teaching them that they don't have to wait for an opening. They can make their own doors, and that glass ceiling no longer exists because it's finally a president that looks like me. So I'm no longer lying when I tell them they can be whatever they want to be, because we are free. Or are we? Or are our changes hidden beneath the cloak of invisibility? Are we now enslaved mentally? How many of us live below the line of poverty, statistically dependent on food stamps to eat? Generations living in the same housing project, and you think that happened by accident? Or is it merely a reflection of the lynch letter still in effect to this day, because 9 out of 10 times we get in our own way? How many crimes are black on black? The truth is tragic. Slavery conditioned men to not be fathers, and that didn't change when slavery was abolished. Pardon me while I impart some knowledge. Daddy isn't home because his daddy wasn't home. So he will never know how to be a father because his own father never taught him. Families were broken apart to discourage unity. Sex is kept in separate vicinities until it was time to breed, thus increasing the value of master's property. The only thing they were concerned that you learned was to be submissive or be hung. The weight of my ancestors on my shoulders, so it's my responsibility to show you that I know you and I can feel your pain because I'm hurting too. And I know your strength because I carry a burden too, but we can't continue to hide from the truth. Mass genocide occurring on the inside, threatening the youth. So now Lil Wayne is a role model. and all the little girls want to be black Barbies. They think bouncing a ball is the only way out of the hood. They'd rather play PlayStation than to read a book. Misplaced priorities, but I feel a change coming over me, and I need you all to come with me. In need of direction, just follow me. I am a mother inherently, and my first responsibility is to teach them that freedom isn't always free, and to honor those who died so we could have it. Langston Hughes soothed my wounds, and I've known I was a phenomenal woman since the first time I read Maya Angelou. Tupac taught me that rap was poetry too. Coltrane chose to play his pain, and the government still refused to take the blame for the men in Tuskegee being experimented on, spreading syphilis and our stronghold, using an STD as population control, and I'm fighting World War IV every time I walk out my own front door, because it never fails to hit me in the face. It's 2014, and the world's still racist and sexist and classist. President Obama bullied and is showing his birth certificate all because Donald Trump asked. He should have told him to kiss his presidential assets. I'm sorry to inform you, but the Dred Scott decision has since been overturned and the Civil War is over. But this battle is far from being won. We've all seen the movie A Time to Kill. Well, for our ancestors, that story was real, and I fear the worst may be yet to come. So many of our youth don't graduate at high school. They think education is a waste of time, adding insult to the injuries of the Little Rock Nine. Asked the Gen 6 their definition of justice. We had to fight until the 20th century for women to receive the right to vote. In November 2008 did inspire hope, but now I'm thinking no taxation without representation is a manifestation of my mind, because I am being taxed, and I can't remember the last time I felt represented. I refuse to be considered a victim or a statistic, and all I need you to do is listen. Let me elevate you as I educate you. If you feel lost, I can redirect you. Ready to put misconception to rest, but we can't move forward until we embrace our past.
Wonderful, Nakesha. That's
Thank
my
you.
favorite poem.
Thank you.
I thank you so much. We have like no time left at all. Thank you for being my guest. Keep me informed on what you're doing. I like to know where you are and how you're coming along.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show and will join me in following Nakesha's career as a rising poet. My next show will feature a program called Future Focus. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.